Hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Red Alert Diaries with Tanya Ehud. Today is the final episode of this season, and I want to say thank you to all of you that have joined me on the journey. Today, I'm going to share a few highlights from this past season. Let's listen. So something else I want you to know about this moment. This is a moment where you are allowing the caterpillar in your being to go on a journey. You see, the thing about a caterpillar, a lot of them operate in solitude. It is in solitude that the caterpillar takes in what it needs to grow into a better version of itself. It is in solitude that the caterpillar keeps moving through the process of gathering the nutrients. It may be by itself, because being alone and being lonely are two totally different elements. You can be alone and grow and develop. Allow this time to be your moment where the caterpillar in your world just keeps moving through the process, gathering what you need, so that on the other end of this journey, when you get to the other side, things will be better for you, because it's on the other side that all of us want to get. So during your day, set aside time for you to think and plan, because each day has its own journey that it needs to bring up in order for you to come up with an idea. And you also need to prepare for what your babies are going to need, because they are reaching out into a world of unknown as well. While you navigate your emotional warfare, they are navigating theirs as well. We cannot forget that what we go through, our children go through as well.
Years ago, I'm 28 now, turning 29 by the time this podcast will be released. And I started my journey in business at 18 years old. Fresh out of high school, I actually got a job working in the marketing department for a large hotel and resort group. It was a wonderful opportunity that I got at such a young age, and I really just dove in, and I wanted to learn everything that I could about this industry, about business, about sales, marketing, consumer psychology, sales psychology, just all of it. Then I decided to go back to school because I realized how much I really loved it and really how good I was at it, like very naturally talented at looking at things through the lens of marketing and business. And so I went back to school, actually specialized in online marketing, so online forms of marketing and social media was my specialty. That's what I focused on in school, and it was so fitting for me. I was like, oh, this is exactly really just like ties all the pieces together, because I loved the creativity of, being able to express myself. I really just found the thing that was the perfect fit for me, and I loved it. Teaching them on the why behind the things I was doing. So, as I was setting up their email marketing campaigns, or I was running their social media pages or creating their websites, I always liked to really teach people about what's going on behind the scenes and the why we're doing these things. And I think that was my way of empowering people. I also wanted them to have at least a basic understanding of the why, so that, if there ever came a time where they needed to either do it themselves, or maybe they chose to work with a different person, that they would understand why I had set things up for them the way that I had, and that they would also be able to just take the baton and run with it, right?
Just be open. What are your thoughts? What can you share?
Well, everything revolves around relationships. And while you may say you're not open, you're not ready, or you're not going to, because we all do it. I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to do that. If you're a Christian, if you believe in God and you allow God to lead your life, you have to be more open. You can't just be so closed off. I'm not, because when you're that adamant about it, God's going to put some tests in front of you. He's going to keep throwing it in front of you to see just how sure you are about what you're not going to do. So I would say stay focused on what it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it's a business venture or whatever it is. Stay focused on that, be centered on that, have your goals lined up, but you always have to seek God's guidance in that. And if God is telling you, hey, do this, you may not understand it sometimes. I know even in coaching and in business, there were times when God said, do it this way. And I'm like, I've tried that way before, but in this moment, he's telling me to do this. So I had to learn to trust him at all times with his decisions and take mine out of there. You know, it's good for us to plan things, but we have to let God direct our steps. So what I did with Tanya was I got to know her. I had to get to know who this person was. And my friend told me was sharp. He said, she's very intelligent. She's sharp. I don't want her to be messed up in here. I want her to have every opportunity to do well. So I took that seriously because now my reputation is on the line and the expectation of my best friend in the compliment he gave me saying, you're the one to train her. I had to take all that in consideration. So now I got to make sure this young lady is successful because my reputation is on the line. I didn't want to disappoint my best friend because he is an awesome individual. And so I had to do what I had to do. So part of that was getting to know who Tanya was. I had to find out what made her tick. And I found out real quickly, Tanya has always been in business from when she was a little girl. Her grandma, her uncle, they raised her in business. So she was very intelligent. She had a vast knowledge of different types of businesses. And she also had children. So she was a mom, a good mom. I found that's why she would be late sometimes because she had to make sure first things first, her children were secured and taken care of in her absence to come pursue her outside venture. And so I found all those things out. I'm like, oh, this lady is deep. So she wasn't just good looking. She was, in fact, intelligent and caring and all of those things, too. So taking all the information in, I had to find out the best way of training her. And I found out that Tanya is very opinionated. If she feels strongly about something, she will let you know. So I had to convince her that in this situation, I had more knowledge than she did. But I didn't have to throw it at her. I just had to explain it to her in a way that she could understand it and she would accept it. And once she grabbed hold of it, it was a done deal. So that's how I went about that. But in that process, we became friends. So I was her mentor in business, but we became friends. We generally liked each other. And so I began to trust her like she trusted me. And she would often give me advice that I could use in my life as well.
And here's the thing that I often share. So for those of you that have the premier book, Red Alert, it's He the One, the pocket guide to finding the love of your life. You already know this information. If we make the decision to stop trying to do the relationship thing, because that's the part that gets a lot of us closed off. The chaos that you experience in that marriage gives you the thought process that all relationships, you got to close yourself up. No, you don't. Because you really don't close yourself off in all relationships. When you have friendships, like I typically have shared with you all, you've had everything you needed from the very beginning. We are heart-centered, we are action-oriented, and we are developers. How do developers pull up their action-oriented element to move themselves in a better direction? Can you share a little more?
Fortunately, I had a lot of different support structures in place. Because my ex had been going through some things. She started some psychological counseling, and after a while, she suggested I do that, and it actually turned out to be a really important thing because I had a tendency to partition the intellectual and the emotional stuff and not really connect into what was going on with my heart, and we did a lot of work on that. So that was an important thing. Another factor is that as I was going through that process, I was very fortunate in that my work colleagues all the way up through my director were very empathetic to the situation. And, you know, I still did my work, but it was a matter of there's nothing like a supportive community. That was the same when I was going through cancer, connecting with patient groups and finding, learning everything I could, but that supportive community as well as relentless learning, which is the other factor, were real keys in both cases. Survival strategies that you rely on. If you're logical then you start to think in terms of facts and sequences and checklists and action steps. I know people that are on highly on the heart-centered side, and so they go to creative and intuition and those sort of things. There's go-to strategies that you're going to fall back on when everything's going down the tubes, and they've helped you survive in the past. So that's not to say they're bad, but exploring other worlds of avenue that you could pursue, and that's the same, for business. It's like I had, it's easy to have a go-to strategy, like a safety thing would be like, okay, if I keep developing new courses and plans and things like that and just get it perfect, then when I'm ready to launch, it'll go. I found that that's not the case. So I've learned to develop programs and courses by going out and doing market research and talking to real human beings that about what their challenges are and their aspirations and their learning styles and those sort of things, and then dynamically putting together a course over, like, allowing it to build. I know where I'm going, but like really refining what I'm going to say in each class along the way, which is scary as hell. But it's incredibly powerful, because the people that are in your class, especially when you come up with a beta program and they know that you're going to do your best for them, they'll tell you what they need, and so you can adjust and change.
Can you tell us a little bit more about, have you had to reset to be who they think you are now and to just get the opportunity? Let's talk more about that.
The reset, it happened when I was 15 years old. When I was 15 years old, I was learning about my power through the power of no, right? I ain't gonna do this. I was a major pain in the butt of all those adults in my life who loved me. And there were going to be consequences. And when I think about the consequences, I was like, that's not what I want. And my mom and my grandmother were like, oh, she's a good kid. She's a good kid. She'll be fine. She'll be fine. And my dad was like, no, she's not. She needs to deal with these consequences. Girl, I prayed all night long. Let me have one more chance. Let me learn how to wield my power in service to your will, Lord. Let me be brave and courageous, even when it's hard. And even when your friends might just, disapprove or, give you a hard time about it. And that was my first reset. That's the big reset where it was like, Erica, you going to juvie or you going to college? Oh, I get a choice. I'm going to college. So I recognize the power of my choice and how you have to stay committed to that choice. Back when I was 15, that's when I found engineering simultaneously and also began to step into things that are my gifts. Like you said, like creating order out of chaos, creating strategies to get things, to get places and spaces. And I still did it in a fun way. I wasn't that person that was like, okay, now I'm just a nerd. I'm a nerd. I played basketball. I wasn't good, but I had fun. I'm like that fun person. Like, I'm here for a fun time, not a long time. I'm here to do what I need to do and get it done. And then when I moved off to college, right, you decide that, this is the thing. And Tennessee State back in 1996 did not have family housing or any of those little programs that I saw at University of Michigan, where I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And it was important for me to continue to provide our son with all the good things. And so my husband and I were like, okay, how do we do this? Where is it cheaper for us to live? What do we need to do to survive? And then also to thrive. And I kept remembering that. I always had that support to encourage me. What do I want to do? I had another moment while I was in school, and just thinking about where do I want to go? I was spending so much time being mom and wife. I wasn't spending any time like proactively pursuing graduation. And I had to take a moment. Erica, what are you doing? What do you want to do? Look in the mirror. Are you proud of who you see? Are you proud of the things that you're doing? And if not, what you gonna do something about it, right? Like, this is not someone else's problem. This is not like, oh, the baby need to sleep. If he just slept, I could do this thing. Erica, any excuse will do if you're looking for one. So it was one of those moments where I looked in the mirror and was like,
Is there any other information after all the stuff that you shared that people can have available to get them to the place where they can start getting pre-qualified for their loan? Is there any more that you'd like to share about that?
Yeah, once you get pre-qualified, from an income document standpoint, you're going to need a few things. If you're refinancing the home and you're getting your spouse off of title or off of the mortgage, you're going to need the final divorce decree to determine ownership interest. From an income document standpoint, if you're receiving child support, separate maintenance, or alimony, you can use that as qualifying income. In most cases, you need a copy of the final divorce decree or 2 months bank statement showing the deposits, and you can use that as income. And then lastly, if you're receiving any Social Security income from your children or anything like that, as long as they're under 19 years old and still in school, you can use that income as qualifying income. But if they're over 18 or 19 years old, you'll still receive it, but you can't use it as qualifying income because of continuance. But the most important thing is for anyone that is, just considering refining or purchasing, if you're looking to use child support or alimony, you just either need the final divorce decree or 2 months bank statement showing the deposits.
Thank you so much for that, Jay. And so for those of you see where you can reach him today at lonerangerconsulting@yahoo.com so that you can get your free gift today. Jay, thank you so much for this. I appreciate all that you've poured into our audience today. Is there one last thing you would like to share with them before we go?
When it comes to just your financial goals, trust the process, and there's going to be trade-offs for everything. And just give it time, and eventually you'll reap a deep harvest if you faint not.
Looking at, and why are some people thinking that you got to do something way different online than you would had you actually met that person? Because you're marketing when you meet somebody anyway.
Well, I can speak to the mistakes men make is that they don't understand how risky online dating is for women. Men, they may have been stood up or something like that, but their safety is rarely at risk, for example. So building trust, of course, is one thing important. But also coming off as somebody who's presentable, that they could invite, to their family Thanksgiving or be with their friends. And there's a couple ways of showing that you're trustworthy. One is smiling. Most men do not smile in their photos. I guess they don't consider it masculine, but the studies show that that's well liked. Avoiding selfies is a big one, because selfies, they distort your face. They make your nose look a lot bigger because they're not. It's taken from too shallow a distance. And then I think dressing up is also an easy way. Just showing more photos in a collared shirt or a suit or something like that. Not all in tank tops, t-shirts, and when I saw photos of guys in tank tops or shirtless in the bathroom, it's just a bad vibe. Guys don't have any clue the vibe they're getting off. Sometimes in their profiles.
You are better than this. That thing that you're looking at, that moment that you see, that's not really you. Let's walk and unpack that a little bit to get to your journey.
I was reading this morning, and it was talking about how in the days of the Bible, when a woman being able to give birth, like being able to be with child, was seen as God's favor on your life. To them, that was I feel like what they worshiped with their body, was being able to get pregnant, to have a baby. I feel like that same thing, that same desire, that same I'm good enough kind of feeling has taken the expression in today's day and age of looking a certain way, right? Like being thin enough, being sculpted enough. So even when I say the body that I wanted, that I thought was beautiful, someone else might look at that body and be like, what are you talking about? You have right now the body that I think is beautiful. All that to say, I was reading, what I thought was so interesting was this author I was reading was talking about how God, when he made Adam and Eve, for those who don't know, those are the first two, the two kids of God, so to speak, the first two humans of creation. He called them very good. before Eve ever was pregnant with child. Eve was very good simply because she was made in the image of God. Not because she was able to get pregnant, not because she was able to do something with her body. If I was speaking to myself, which is kind of, if we're going back to that reset and what that conversation looked like, for me, it's, Annie, your body is beautiful, not because it looks a certain way, not because it does a certain thing or doesn't do a certain thing or is injured or is healthy. It is beautiful because it is made in the image of God, broken or healed, pregnant or not. And going back to, like, if I'm just being real, Tanya, I think so many of us, we know that, but there's a gap between our brain and our heart. It's like, I can say this to you all day, but if you're anything like me, because I had people tell me this all day, and I couldn't, it was like this deeply rooted sin, this deeply rooted desire to just be good enough in an avenue outside of God.
How do they make that change? Is there something that you can share with them about all the different changes that you've made to help them get there?
Yeah, lots of transitions. And I will say this, they've been prompted by the Lord, because I call myself a calculated risk taker. When I say I'm not a risk taker, my girlfriend's like, what? Like, you left a corporate America job with, as my parents would say, fringe benefits. And you had a house, you had a car, and you went back to school without that. That was a faith move, y'all. The Lord has taken me through faith transitions one after another. I'm not a person that just hops one place and hops another. Let me tell you something. Sometimes I just want to stay forever for stability, because I think that's stability. But this is the thing. When you have the gift of faith, which I do have the gift of faith, there's movement that, like, God has to fuel that testimony with something. You can't just say you have the gift of faith and you never walk by faith. Okay. So I left IT industry because I felt strongly led by the Lord to change my career to counseling. And I needed the flexibility so I could do the work. And then as I worked the 20 years in the pregnancy medical clinic industry, I started feeling a little restless again. And that was a long stretch. But I started feeling restless, like, I think my time is coming to an end. But I didn't know what was ahead. So when my friend joined the financial industry and she talked to me about it, I knew I needed help with my finances. I knew I needed to get my financial house in order. But I wasn't sure when. Now look, get this. This is the story. I knew it was clear, and I could not wait to get to work to ask my boss for my job back. There was no shame at all, because I did not want to be in the wrong place. If any of you have ever been in the wrong place and you knew God wasn't covering you, I was desperate to not be in the wrong place. I've been in the wrong place before. So I went back and had a conversation, and she's looking at me, and I was like, the Lord told me, it was clear. And shortly after that, I went to my journal from a couple of months before that. And at a conference, an entrepreneur conference, the Lord told me that it was not time for me to leave my job. Now, I'll tell you this, you're probably wondering, well, why in the world did you resign? Because when I'm in the zone of journaling, I don't quite know what's going on until I go back and read. Have any of you been in that situation? You've been in a tunnel vision, you're journaling what you think the Lord's saying, and then you come out of it. So I never went back to read my journal. You all, this is a side note. This is a bonus. Go back and read your journals. If you're looking for direction, the Lord probably already told you, go back and read your journals, okay?
Unpack that piece just a little bit more, because when people are doing different things, They don't seem to pay enough attention to the fact that it's tied to who you are at the core of your being.
Yeah, no, trust me. Even as a child, I was always wanting to have the best grades, the best progress reports, the best report cards, all these different things, because I knew what was coming if I didn't. I was brought up in that kind of household. I knew what was coming if I did not, because there was no reason I shouldn't have. You didn't go outside until things were done. So I took that to when I got older. I wasn't out doing all this, partying and drinking and having too much fun until my work was done, until my business side of it was done. I've literally told my crew, where were we at? We were in Utah one time when I was in the reserves, and I knew I had work to get done, both school and my business. And they were like, "Hey man, we're gonna go skiing. You want to come?" I was like, "We just did that in New Mexico. I'm not doing it again in Utah on the same trip." So I said, "Nah, I'm gonna pass." And I did it in a manner of, no, I still got things to do. I gave them the exact reasons. I'm not just saying, "Nah, y'all going. I ain't got no money." No, I didn't do that. I said, "Listen, hey guys, I gotta do some work. Actually, I got schoolwork to do, and then I also have, my bit." People understand when you have priorities, and when you actually set aside boundaries for those.
So you see all the joys that we've had over the past season, and I am so looking forward to what's coming in the next season. There's a few new twists, and we will have several new guests that will join us on the journey as we reset and rise to rebuild our lives and thrive in this new beginning. And I invite you to join me for the new season that starts next week. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the next season.